Now, there are some people actively trying to sabotage us from within ESPN.
Funny.
More specifically, I believe, Norby Williamson.
And you don't need me to sit up here and tell you this is an awful situation, because it is. I feel terrible for Pat McAfee, and I don't know what he's going to do next. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, there's been a very odd situation unfolding between Pat McAfee and ESPN in the past couple of days. And I've held off on making this video just a little bit to see if some more information would come out. And obviously by this point in time, you can put two and two together here. I feel like we have enough information to talk about this. And let me also throw this in there. If you're not paying attention to every single second of this video, you are going to get lost. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So get you a popcorn snack, your favorite meal you like to eat when you watch a video, because trust me, I do the same thing. We're not doing no intro, none of that. We're getting straight into it. I don't got time to waste, and you don't got time to waste either. But before we even get going, I gotta give you some context, because context of this situation is very key. So as we all know or should know, Pat McAfee, he's a former NFL player, and he started up his own show on YouTube, and it was great. And it was so great, in matter of fact, that ESPN said, dang, we need this guy. He's drawing in a lot of eyes, and we want a piece of him. It's not complicated, it's common sense. ESPN went after McAfee because they thought they'd benefit from him, and it'd draw more attention to ESPN, and it'd get more people watching. Because ESPN is currently facing a problem they've never had to face in the history of their existence. What am I talking about? What am I referring to? Well, for the past, not just a couple of years, but for eternity, if you wanted to hear about sports, you had to turn on ESPN, you had to turn on SportsCenter. Well, now you no longer have to do that, and thank the Lord, because ESPN and SportsCenter, don't even get me started on them, they've been going downhill for a while now. But my point is, in all that, now if you want to hear somebody talk about, oh, I don't know, let's say Ohio State football, or let's say Texas swimming, or whatever sport you desire, more than likely, there is a YouTuber out there who specializes in that niche. Whatever sport fascinates you, soccer, basketball, football, baseball, there's a YouTuber out there that talks about your favorite team. And just in general, there's YouTubers that cover stuff that ESPN and SportsCenter covers. And by the way, I think the YouTubers are better than the people on ESPN. But like I said, different conversation for a different day. And the reason I say the YouTubers are better is because it's real. It's authentic. It's not somebody reading off of a prompt, or it's not somebody giving some words they can or can't say. No, it's real. And that's why me personally, maybe I'm a little biased, but I think YouTube's awesome. And I tell you this much, I couldn't tell you the last time I legitimately turned on ESPN or SportsCenter. It had to be, shoot, it had to be 5 or 6 years ago. There's no reason to, at least for me, because number one, I cover sports myself, and number two, if I did want to find out some information, I'm going to watch a YouTuber for it. I say all that to say this. ESPN is now having to compete with YouTubers for viewers. They got people that are solely dedicated just for analytics, the edit, so on, and they're having a hard time competing with regular schmojos out there and YouTubers. And I'll give ESPN some credit. They're trying to adapt to the modern times, and that's why they went after Pat McAfee. That's why they offered him, what was it, 5 years, $75 million? I could be highly misinformed on this because I don't watch people that talk about sports on YouTube, and the main reason for that is because I do it, and the last thing I want to see when I get done talking about sports is somebody else talk about sports. But anyways, like I was saying, I believe Pat McAfee was the top YouTuber guy out there that covered the NFL, and that's mainly what he covered, right? I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I've never watched one of his live shows on YouTube, but I've seen the numbers he's pulling in. It's ridiculous. At times, random times, I've seen him with 80,000 viewers, live viewers. We're not talking about, oh, 80,000 people viewed a video. No. This was a live stream. And he's doing it consistently. That's the even more mind-boggling thing about all of it. And it goes back to this. Why did so many people gravitate towards Pat McAfee? Because he's real. He's authentic. He's not a puppet up there for ESPN. And ESPN took notice of it, and they said, dang, we need that guy. Because number one, if we get him, that'll help our viewership out. And number two, we'll no longer have to compete against them. And that was the part about all this that flew over everybody's head when they saw the amount of money that ESPN gave Pat McAfee. It's not just the fact that you're getting a top-tier talent that talks about sports, but you're also not competing against them, so it's a win-win. Long story short, though, they wound up signing him, and I'm not going to lie, I was not sold on it right away. We even made a video talking about the situation where ESPN laid off David Pollock and all these other guys and brought on Pat McAfee to replace him. I made it clear and evident. I wasn't a fan of Pat McAfee. Now, don't get it twisted. I didn't hate the guy, but I wasn't a fan. I never watched him. I didn't know too much about him. And if you never heard me speak about McAfee before, let me throw this in there. It's as unbiased as it gets because I don't even have an opinion on the guy. But I tell you what, as skeptical as I was about Pat McAfee joining College Game Day and speaking on college football and doing everything he did this year, I was impressed. And not that he needs to impress Matt B. Great or anyone, but I thought he did a heck of a job. He don't need my validation or anybody else's validation. He's one of the best in the business, and that's not an opinion, it's a fact. Numbers don't lie. College Game Day has been dying out the past 3 to 4 years. I know some people still like it, but to me at least, it's been dying out. And he brought so much energy to College Game Day this year, and he was the main reason I tune in every now and then. Still didn't watch it too much, but I thought that segment where they had the kickers or the random people kicking a field goal for money, that was genius. That was brilliant. And let me ask you a question. Do you think they would have had that segment if McAfee didn't join? I don't think so. And it made for a great mix because he's one of the crazier guys in the cast or in the friend group, and the other guys are more calm. And that's what you need. And if you're a dude, you know this. In every friend group, you need a guy like Pat McAfee. Or at least you need a guy like McAfee if you want some entertainment and excitement in your life. You need that crazy guy that every now and then you're looking at with a side eye like, what's this guy about to do next? But on a serious note here, I thought he was great all year long, and it seemed like rainbows, sunshine, and butterflies with him and ESPN up until the past couple of days. And let me just state this before I show you what went down. I knew eventually this was going to happen. And the reason I knew it was going to happen is because ESPN cannot control a guy like Pat McAfee. He's not a puppet. And the problem is ESPN has been able to control everybody else because they are puppets. They throw them a dollar sign and say, hey, here's what you can say, here's what you can't say, shut your mouth, we'll pay you, and that's that. And I don't even think it has anything to do with money. It's more so about integrity. I don't think you can buy out Pat McAfee. You can't do it. To me, at least, he seems like a man with great integrity and honor, and he's not going for the BS. What do I mean by that? I don't care if ESPN was paying him $1 billion. If they were doing shady things, he'd still expose it and walk away. Let me just show you this, though. A couple days, Pat McAfee called out ESPN for trying to sabotage his own show. And what's even crazier about this is it was one of the head guys at ESPN. And I have no idea if I can show you this video clip or not. I'm very familiar with the fair use terms on YouTube, but here's the thing. ESPN has a zero copyright policy. You can't use a second of their video footage. But what other YouTubers post, yeah, you can use their footage, talk over it, give your own 2 cents, and so on, like we do all the time. And why I have no idea why I can use this or not is because, as most of you may or may not know, Pat McAfee streams his show on ESPN and YouTube at the same time. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to throw this short little video clip in here because I do want you guys to see it. And if you wind up not seeing it, it means I had to re-upload this video. Hopefully I get to leave it in here. If not, it is what it is. You got to understand why. Copyright. Either way, it shouldn't be too big of a deal for you guys. So Matt, roll a clip if you can.
We're very thankful for the ESPN folks being very hospitable. Now, there are some people actively trying to sabotage us from within ESPN.
Funny.
More specifically, I believe Norby Williamson is the guy who is attempting to sabotage our program. I'm not 100% sure. That is just seemingly the only human that has information, and then somehow that information gets leaked and it's wrong, and then it sets a narrative of what our show is. And then are we just going to combat that from a rat every single time? I don't know. But like somebody tried to get ahead of our actual ratings release with wrong numbers 12 hours beforehand. That's a sabotage attempt. And it's been happening basically this entire season from some people who didn't necessarily love the old edition of the Pat McAfee show to the ESPN family.
Sure.
There's a lot of those. We've heard them anonymously quoted in the Washington Post, in the New York Post,
Right.
in the New York Times,
Right.
in the LA Times,
Right.
in Wall Street Journal.
Right.
And they're never like, yeah, love the show.
This is
It's
awesome.
always like little things to try to tear us down. So even with the enemy within our own camp, somebody that I don't like that guy. That guy left me in his office for 45 minutes, no-showed me in 2018. So this guy has had zero respect for me. And in return, same thing back to him for a long time. So even with that taking place and potential PR, we're still growing somehow.
Yep.
Let's run through this though, because like I said, I'm not too sure if I could throw this in the video. All you need to know if you didn't see the video clip is that the executive vice president, one of the producers for ESPN, he has been trying to sabotage the show by leaking out false numbers. And you may be sitting there asking, like I was asking when I heard this, well, why in the crap would he do this? What does he get out of leaking out false numbers, false reports, and trying to sabotage Pat McAfee? Why does he care? Well, according to Pat McAfee, there's a long-term beef between him and Norby Williamson. That is the guy that's trying to do this, trying to sabotage him. Mr. Norby Williamson here, the guy from ESPN that's trying to sabotage Pat McAfee, He has never liked Pat McAfee. Wasn't a fan of ESPN signing him, and yeah, I guess you could say he is still not a fan. And I know this still may be a little bit complicated because even I was confused, and you may be asking this question. Well, Matt, when you say that guy was trying to sabotage him, how was he doing that to the media? Because it's not like this guy was unplugging the internet cord so they couldn't stream the show. No, nothing like that. The way that Norby Williamson was quote-unquote sabotaging Pat McAfee is he was going to these media outlets and telling them, instead of, let's say, Pat McAfee on ESPN was streaming to 400,000 live viewers, he was telling them, oh, well, he only had 200,000 live viewers that day. In other terms, he was putting out a false narrative that the McAfee show has been a failure on ESPN up until this point. And when you do that, what happens next? All these media companies and outlets, they're going to make all these articles and it's going to go viral. And when that goes viral, it's bad press and it makes Pat McAfee's show look worse than what it is. So if somebody who doesn't watch the show thinks about tuning in and they see an article talking about how bad it's been, they're going to go, oh, okay, I probably shouldn't watch anytime soon. So that's the whole dilemma there, and I hope I dumb that down as good as I can. And you don't need me to sit up here and tell you this is an awful situation, because it is. I feel terrible for Pat McAfee, and I don't know what he's going to do next. He wants to work with ESPN because it's a big-time media company, but in reality, I just don't think it's going to work out. If you want to work for a company like ESPN, you got to be their puppet. It's as plain and as simple as that. And why is this not going to work out? Because, you know what I'm about to say next. Pat McAfee ain't no puppet. He's going to speak his mind regardless of what they say, and it's why I'm still shocked even to this day that they somehow got a deal worked out. And like I've said before, I personally don't watch Pat McAfee, but in all fairness to McAfee here, I don't watch anybody else that talks about sports. But here's what I can tell you based off of facts and numbers, he's one of the biggest people out there, and he doesn't need ESPN. So even if something happens with him in the near future, he's going to be A-okay. He'll just go back to YouTube, have his own show, and stream to 100,000 people. It'll be interesting to see how much longer this fiasco goes on between him and ESPN. I give it tops 5 to 6 years. And ESPN's delusional for bringing him on thinking you can tell him what to do. You think Pat McAfee's going to find out you're trying to sabotage him and he's going to keep quiet about it? Heck to the nah. That ain't going to happen and it'll never happen, and I respect him for that. ESPN proves yet again why they're a joke, but hey, that's nothing new here. Let me know your thoughts down below. But